Okay, so continuing the trend that we've been talking about, how recruiting is so much different now. Everything in college baseball has changed dramatically in the last 3 years, but especially in the last year to 2 years. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about was just how much more competitive college baseball is than in years past, guys. And, my last video kind of talks about this, how just because your brother, your older brother, or a friend or a cousin got recruited a few years ago by a school, and you're kind of the same type player, doesn't mean you're going to go get recruited there. Well, here are the reasons why. So let's talk about kind of why is college baseball so much more competitive now. And again, guys are more physical now. And so, more physical. The reason for that is a lot more older guys are staying around in college baseball. Schools are bringing in portal guys instead of bringing in a whole class of freshmen. Just think about it. When I came in, most schools, your freshman class was anywhere from like 9, if you didn't have a lot of guys graduating or getting drafted, to 20-something. So you had a bunch of new freshmen coming in every year. They're not going to be as physical as the older guys. So you had a mix of guys that had been in a strength program for a few years and guys who were coming in as freshmen. I was 153 pounds my freshman year. And a lot of guys were in that like 170 range. And so because of that, physicality was not a huge deal in college baseball. It was expected that as you got older, you would get more physical. Well, now, if they can go get a physical, proven guy, they're not recruiting that freshman who you never know is going to be good enough, and he's not as physical. So if you are a high schooler out there right now and you want to compete in college baseball as fast as possible, weight room, immensely important. Now, number 2, one of the reasons that college baseball is a lot more competitive, and this may even be the number 1 reason, are the changes to the draft. So this gets overlooked a lot, guys. The reality is, when I was playing, it was 40 rounds. A few years before that, it was 50, 60, and now it's down to 20. So that is a large amount of players, 500 to 600 players that aren't getting drafted anymore. And a lot of those guys, especially in the later rounds, because your high schoolers aren't as likely to sign in the late rounds, a lot of those guys were college players. So your solid college player who was a performer, at least when I was playing, you weren't going to get picked in the top 10 rounds, but you were probably going to get drafted at some point. Now there's only 20. So the reality is, a lot of kids who are really good, a lot of players who are juniors and put up a good year, that may not have those 2 or 3 really good professional, projecting tools, they're staying in college baseball. And so because of that, there's less spots. Your guys that were getting drafted in the 26th round as a junior and signing for 30 grand or 40 grand or whatever, they're staying. And so there's less spots to compete for coming in as freshmen, meaning there's better players sticking around in college baseball. So that's making it more competitive, a lot harder for freshmen to come in and play right away, especially at the big schools. Again, the big schools. Number 3, guys, and this kind of plays off this a little bit, but with the draft changes, again, you have way more talented players, and then you got NIL. And again, look at it. You had guys that would have been drafted in 40 rounds. They would have been drafted and gone. Well, they're sticking around. And then you have college players who, they may have 1 year left of eligibility, and instead of getting drafted and maybe getting 15 grand, they go to an SEC school and they're getting 60, 70 grand. So you have, and that's a small percentage of cases. I'm not trying to make it out to be like that's a large amount of the players. But there are definitely players, because I know from knowing the players, knowing the coaches, that we're never going to get drafted and are getting 50K, 60K from a big-time school. So there's definitely that happening with guys that are in the draft level as well. And so those guys are staying around more. It's just a totally different game now, guys, with all these changes. You're talking the roster size change, portal. The highest levels of college baseball, not just the Power 4, but your Coastals, your Louisiana Tech, your Dallas Baptist. You have those mid-majors that really do compete with those schools. The highest levels of college baseball now is kind of like the minor leagues. I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, and especially because the minor leagues, there's no rookie ball anymore. There's no rookie leagues. When I got drafted, I got sent to advanced rookie, short season advanced A. There was a rookie ball, advanced rookie, and then you went to low A, high, double A, triple A. Well, that advanced rookie ball league doesn't exist anymore. So there's more guys just sticking around in college baseball. That means your high-end college baseball is at that level, minimum. You have, and I say this all the time, guys get college baseball confused and say, well, there's no way a college pitcher could compete. I mean, we're seeing a lot of college pitchers getting almost straight to the big leagues. So that tells you kind of what high-level college baseball is. But your really good SEC, ACC starter, he's probably minimum could go to high A and have success, maybe double A. Because pitching, obviously it's not as big of a leap from college baseball because you're going to wood bats. The strike zone's a lot smaller, so that's an adjustment. But you're facing wood bats, so your stuff's going to play better. Now, these are really the three biggest reasons that college baseball is way more competitive now. Again, we've talked about it a bunch, guys, and I want to get this message out there. There's other reasons for why that is, but I want to make this clear to you guys out there that are following the channel that may not know much about the recruiting process, may think I'm okay to just kind of do what everyone's done for the last 10 years. It's not okay anymore. If you don't have a game plan in motion for helping your son get recruited, getting feedback from coaches when they go to camps, knowing what he needs to improve on, what the coaches are saying he's good at, what he needs to improve on, you're falling behind the 8 ball so fast. Guys. College baseball is on a whole nother level now than it was even 2-3 years ago. Totally different level. There's more money coming in. The more the money comes in, the more competitive it will continue to grow. So I just want you guys to know this so you understand kind of if your son's a sophomore in high school, maybe he's a junior, the landscape of how everything's changed. It is way more likely that your son needs to go to a low-level D1, a D2, a JUCO, which have great programs, do a great job developing guys, or getting guys drafted, and that he plays as a freshman, than going to a Power 4 school and sitting the bench. Again, it is way harder than when I played 12 years ago, when I played 13 years ago. It's way harder to fight for your spot as a freshman. There's just not as many spots. And really, this is the key. You may think, oh, I got a spot, the guy's going to be gone, but you really don't know what that school's going to do in the portal until like July of before you get on campus. So a month before you get on campus, they could bring in a guy to replace you or to take your spot for a year while you're on the bench. So it's a totally different landscape, guys. I appreciate all the support. Any questions you have, don't hesitate to put them in the comments. I'll respond and let you guys know what I think. Stay tuned for our next video.